And it's the Open Mic Broadcast Network at it yet again. We are so fortunate to have on the line with us today. And I'm going to have to refer to him as one of my relic brothers. I was referred to by some of the younger brothers in the industry that I was an old relic and didn't know what I was talking about. Well, I'm glad to introduce to some and present to others my relic brother, none other than Reggie Flood. How you doing, my man?
I'm good, brother. I'm good. I'll be anytime I get to be your brother. I'm cool with that. I'm all right with that.
from one relic brother to another, right?
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
It's funny when nothing stays the same, right? But then the more things change, the more they stay the same. And
that's right.
This sports talk business. And a lot of people that are not aware, we try to educate as far as entertain here at the Open Mic. But the first sports talk show was in 1964 in New York, and they had a call-in show in Syracuse that was talking about the Syracuse men's basketball team. That was the first call-in show, but the first sports show was in New York in 1964. And to where we've traveled now, aren't we in what they say the land of opportunity when we get to talk sports every day, man? And whether they love it or hate it, people tune into us.
Yes, they tune in. If for no other reason than you love what you hate and you hate what you love a lot of times.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And with that, man, look, I've been teasing with folks. I'm under the witness protection program right now because of some things that I view from my relic eyes on the road ahead for JSU. But that's not going to be the vocal of our conversation today. But it is a very unique time for JSU. They were on a 2-year or 2.5-year wave under Coach Sanders, but now that he's moved on, there's a gauntlet road ahead of them. It's going to be starting this weekend. And without you throwing your Southern shades into the conversation just yet, this is really a critical point coming out for Jackson State this weekend, isn't it?
It really is. It really is. This is, you're going through, anytime you go through transition or a school goes through transition with new coaches, new players, you don't really know what you're going to get because your coach hasn't been the head guy in a situation where he's, they're under fire per se in a live game. You have players who haven't been in the situation in a live game, and it's a transition. It's transition in a short period of time, in a relative short period of time with the inexperienced head coach. So, you have the expectations are, some would say outsized expectations. It's going to be hard for Coach T.C. Taylor to reach those. But, you have to be positive about what you've seen. They've tried to do everything they can do to keep the program on a championship level. But now it's time to show and prove.
Yes, sir.
It's coming up this weekend. It's time to show and prove. So we'll see what happens.
And speaking of the show and prove and Blue Bloods for the Southwestern Athletic Conference, we did a show a few episodes back where my top 4 strongest fan base support for the Southwestern Athletic Conference. We had number 1, your Southern Jags, number 2, FAMU, number 3, JSU, and then number 4, Grambling, due to basically the Eddie Robertson era. But after that, Flood, it became like you could just pull them out of a hat and start labeling them. And yes, some of them don't have the tenure that those top 4 that I had mentioned. How do you see? I know you're going to feel good because you got Southern in number 1, but how do you see that?
I would tell you the truth. Southern is not number 1 to me. Southern is not number 1, not anymore. Now the Southern of old, but Southern is not the number 1 fan base. Florida A&M is number 1. Jackson State is number 2. Southern is not the number 1 fan base anymore. Not to me. And that, I'm saying that as a Southern alum. Southern is not the number one fan base in the conference. FAMU is number one. Jackson State is number two. I would put Southern probably at number three, or I might even put I'll put Alcorn in there too at number four, or number three or four. It could be between either one of those two. That would be my top four, with the last two not being in a certain order. But man, I look at the fan bases in the rest of the conference. I think Alabama State's a sleeping giant. Mm-hmm. If they get on track, I think Alabama State will get back, and in terms of being one of the top 5 fan bases in the conference. After that, I'll tell you a program that's another sleeping giant that if they can get back on track, Bethune-Cookman. Mm-hmm. If they can get back on track, I think they would be a fan base that would be very supportive. And then everybody's supportive when your team is winning for the most part. Right. Except with the exception, and I'm not throwing a shot, but it's not a shot. With the exception of Prairie View, I don't understand the Prairie View fan base, but it is what it is. You're an exception to the rule when it comes to Prairie View.
Well, I guess I'm gonna have to say thank you on that. But I took some heat. I'll give you my entire list, and I took a little heat from some of my PV alum. I had Southern 1, FAM 2, Jackson State 3, Grambling 4, Alcorn 5. Number 6, I had Alabama State. Number 7, I had Prairie View. Number 8, I had Alabama A&M. Number 9, we had Bethune-Cookman. And number 10, we had Pine Bluff. And number 9, we had Texas Southern. Number 10 was Bethune-Cookman, then Pine Bluff, then Bethune-Cookman, then finally with Valley. And like I said, to me, and I was basing it on fan base support other than a classic or homecoming. How do you travel when it's not one of those types of games? And of course, when we're in certain regions, you're going to have certain experiences going one way or the other. And I got a brother who is a content provider on the show. He said, I am not a true TV fan. I love him, but he's like, man, how can you say that? Because I'm on record for saying that Prairie View, best case scenario is 8-3, and worst case scenario is probably 5-6 this season. Now, when I say that, I'm not supporting the Panthers. I'm trying to be realistic and logical of what it could look like, because if we just go down the non-conference schedule for Prairie View, we have SMU. I think that's safe to assume that's going to be an L unless something magical happens that day. Okay? Then you have Abilene Christian. Should have beat them on the road last year, but it's still a game that I think Prairie View can win at home, but you got to get out there and execute. Then you have your other non-conference against Houston Christian. If we don't beat Houston Christian, I might have to shut down for a week. But, it is what it is. Now, when it comes to conference play, and this is just call me like it is, we have struggled against your Jags. We have struggled against the Alcorn Braves. And we're going to have a struggle from my vantage point when we face FAMU. So if you base those, and the game that's really got me concerned is Texas Southern because of their quarterback play. And the only advantage that we're going to have, or that we maintain for the past 8 seasons, is that it's the first game of the year, and we got an 8-season winning streak on them. But anything can happen when you get out there and put it rubber to the road.
Exactly. So, I mean, you're not alone when you say something that people don't agree with, or people who are apparently who claim to be fans of the program don't agree with. I've been accused of not being a loyal Jaguar. I think I was called wishy-washy. So anytime you're highly critical or critical of a program or part of the program, people have to get in their feelings about it. But it is what it is. It's our job to have some kind of objectivity when talking about the programs, and not just the programs around the SWAC, but even our own program. And sometimes I think we may be a little bit harsher on the program that we care about, but we have to see it through the eyes of what's the truth about the program and just the facts of what was laid out. So, sometimes that doesn't lend us to being saying that all the good things about our program, or lend to saying that our program is going to go undefeated every year and win the championship, because we know that that's not true.
That's not a reality at all. But once again, it's the only business that I can think of that it doesn't matter about your political status, racial status, social status, economic status, that you're going to get a hot take one way or the other. And when the dust settles, it's about informing our listeners, entertaining our listeners, and educating them from what we've lived, what we've researched, and just what's out there and available. And that's why I'm so glad to have you on with us today. Now, we got a common denominator, and he goes by the name of Eric Dooley. He's back home, and I know it was a nice honeymoon phase and acceptance phase that when he was coming back to return, they said the return of the good son. Had a pretty decent set for last season, and in fact, they have him and the Jags picked to win the West. How are things developing in the camp from your vantage point?
Well, I'll tell you this: there was no honeymoon season in Baton Rouge for Coach Dooley. Expectations were high from the moment he got there, and the expectations are still high. I think camp has gone well for them. I think they developed confidence. Harold Blood, the new quarterback, has taken control. He's a guy who's been in the program for 5 years. He's finally getting his opportunity to start, and he's taken the leadership role in the program. And you can see that very early on that the team is getting behind him, and he's embraced the leadership. For Coach Dooley, he understood that there was some. It seems to me that he understood that there were some mistakes last year, that he may have been a little stubborn in some decision making. He seems to be a little bit more comfortable in the position this year, and we're seeing that there's been a focus on the offensive and defensive line. I think they brought 17 offensive linemen into camp, and that's a good thing because they've had some nagging injuries on the offensive line. They have been attempting to get healthy, but they're very confident that when that offensive line is healthy, that they'll be able to do some great things. You have a running back room with 6 running backs in it, and all of them are pretty good. Even they have a transfer who came in out of the portal from Alabama. He originally started out at Alabama A&M, went to JUCO, I think it was, and now he's at Southern. This is a guy who's a former all-SWAC guy. And I think that overall, Coach Dooley, he's done a lot to kind of turn the roster over. And I think he has the type of team, I should say, that he wants to have now. And he's very confident in the players that he has. So I think the next level and what their motto has been this fall season is going from good to great, and doing the things that it takes to go from just being a good team to being a great team. We'll see if that translates to the field coming up real soon.
Absolutely. And it's always the saying, be careful what you ask for. And we know that there was a decision that was made in the waiting hours for him to return back to Southern. And he returned, and it was a gift almost from Prairie View to you guys, where they kind of stumbled toward the end to have you facing off against Jackson. And technically, you see the results that you lose to Jackson, but it wasn't necessarily that Jackson outplayed you. It goes back to that baggage that has followed Dewey, that he was a bit stubborn in some of his decision making during the course of a championship match.
Yeah, well, Jackson outplayed us that first half. They were better. They were a better team. And part of that was, maybe because of the personnel. I mean, they beat us twice, and they beat us convincingly. They were a better team. And truth be told, we made it to the championship. Some would say we shouldn't have been there, but things went our way. So apparently we should have been there. We just didn't do it on the field. So, I kind of even said myself, we backdoored into the championship, but we were there. It took some people to not complete the season, including, Prairie View and Texas Southern, not finish for Southern to get into the championship. Jackson State was a better team, but part of the reason that they were better was, some would say, because of decisions that the coach made, in particular with the quarterbacking situation. And that's why I say this year it seems like he is more comfortable in the position of quarterback. And I think when you become more comfortable in the position, it allows you to see things and realize, well, hey, I might need to make these changes so we can be a better team. I felt like last year he wanted to go with his guys, and he went with his guys sometimes to his detriment. I feel like this year he has all of his guys. So if he's going to change, he'll be changing to another one of his guys. So I think he'll feel a lot more freer to make changes when and if it's necessary.
Yes, sir. And all I'm going to say is Mississippi Valley. I don't need to say anything else when it comes to you all getting to the championship. But that has been part of the baggage, let's say, that Dooley has. And not just Dooley, because I don't want this to seem like this is a dog pile on Dooley's segment. But most coaches feel like they have something to prove. A bit of ego comes in when, especially at a quarterback position, if you do have success, then you're going to get the backlash. Well, you inherited those guys. Those weren't your guys. So I think, especially at that position, you want your guy in there who can run and do the things that you have schemed up for success on the offensive side. Now, a concern for me, I heard the depth of 16, 17 offensive linemen come in, but that's also, for me, a smoke signal of instability. Now, injuries are a part of the game, but normally you want to get your 5 to 7 guys that you can plug in and out for that consistency, especially with the high-power type offense that Dooley likes to run.
Well, I don't agree with you on that. I didn't say he was playing 17 linemen. I said they brought 17 linemen into camp. There's a difference.
Right. Right.
That's depth. And if there's any place in particular in college football where you want to have depth, it's along your offensive and defensive line. That doesn't necessarily mean that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to play 17 offensive linemen or even play 8 offensive linemen. But it means that they have the depth, and he realizes that they have to build depth in the offensive line and have some versatility. I think that's the main point. I look at that as a positive. It's going to have to be if you're going to play for championships, it's going to have to be a next man up philosophy. And I think not just with Dooley, but I think with any coach, they would welcome having that kind of depth at the offensive line to be able to with guys that can play. If you can bring in guys if you get an injury and you can bring in another guy that can play and keep going, that makes a big difference. So,
it does make a big difference. Now, in this era that we have with the transfer portal, that theory was 100% concrete. But now, today, a guy feel like he's not getting ample playing time to the portal they go. And that has created yet another turbulent situation, especially on our level. And there is no doubt that you want to have that depth on the offensive and defensive side of the line, in particular when we step outside of our conference. Because I think when it comes to skill positions, we are on par with practically anybody. But we lose those non-conference games in particular in that defense and offensive line.
Yes, yeah. I think that's for years and years, that's been the major difference is the offensive and defensive line. And when we get into those games against, out of conference games against other FCS teams or division, higher FBS teams, you usually see that, especially after late in games or in the third and fourth quarter, we start to see that teams try to dominate along the line of scrimmage. And I think that too comes to why you need depth along the offensive and defensive line to be able to balance that and counteract that. And I think that's been something that's been a focus for several teams in our conference, at least at the top of the conference. That's been a focus.
Right. Now, me being an old defensive guy, and I think I would spend most of my eggs on that defensive line. I know the importance of offensive line, because if they can't block, you can't execute and let your skill players shine. But I would rather have 8 to 9 defensive linemen than 8 to 9 offensive linemen. And because usually, I say, except an injury comes, that offensive line is one unit that's oiled and ready to go. Those defensive guys, you want to try to keep them fresh, especially at the high-paced game of football in today with the spread formations.
Yeah, and I think, too, I think that's one of the things I look at in terms of Southern and Coach Dooley. Those are two areas that they focused on, offensive and defensive line. And being able to have a good 8 to 9 defensive linemen having a rotation along the defensive line. You have some guys like a Davin Cotton, who was a 5-star D4, 5-star defensive tackle, transferred from LSU, who's coming in. You have a few more transfers, so they've hit the portal and they've recruited well. So they have a good 8 or 9 man rotation in terms of the defensive line. And I'm like you, I believe in having a tough defensive line, just the line of scrimmage, period. I believe any team that's going to be good and be a championship caliber team has to play well at the defensive line.
Okay. Now, I know you mentioned earlier that the expectations were high coming in, and that's not going to change for this 2023 season. If you were to look into your crystal ball, Brother Flood, how do you see your Jags standing toward the end of the season?
I'll be honest with you. They have opportunity to be a championship caliber team. It's going to be the fact it's going to come down to coaching. I honestly believe it. I think that from a talent standpoint, they'll be able to match any team that they play that's on the schedule this year. And in a lot of teams, they'll be a more talented team. But it's going to come down to coaching. It's going to come down to physicality, whether this team can get down in the trenches and dominate in the trenches, can run the ball. I know Coach Dooley is known for throwing the ball around the yard, but he has a running back room of some really talented guys who can really do a lot of things. So I think if they are willing to commit to the run and, get the ball to the athletes, and it's going to be controlled on the line of scrimmage, offensive and defensive line, they can win the championship. If not, then it could be a very mediocre season.
What would you consider a mediocre season?
Anything that's not a championship. Looking at the schedule, the way the schedule falls this year, if Southern, loses, 3 or 4 games this year, that's a failed season. That's a failed season.
And let's say 3 or 4 conference games, not combined non-conference, but 3 or 4 games overall. Which one are you saying?
Well, they shouldn't be losing. Most of the non-conference games are against SWAC opponents. I mean, 2 of your 3 non-conference games are against Alabama State and Jackson State. So even those games are games that they should be winning.
Right.
But if they're going to lose a game, it would be, I look at Jackson State. I look at Alabama State. They're going to be tough. Alabama State, Jackson State are going to be two tough games to start off the season. Both of them non-conference. FAMU is another game. Although FAMU, we have FAMU at home this year, and I'm not looking over anybody, but I'm just looking at some of the high points. We go to Lorman in November. That's going to be a tough game. So those are two games right there that could take you out of the championship hunt.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. No doubt about it. I'm thinking 9-2 overall, and like you said, maybe one conference loss for sure can keep you in there. 2, you're going to be on the borderline, and 3. And the thing about the West, it is so competitive that they cannibalize each other. And then when you look up, you're going like, wow, how did they make it to the championship and they got 3 losses? But that's just the way the West is. And with the improvements of a Texas Southern, let's say the expectation of improvement of Texas Southern and Grambling State, it's just going to get even tougher.
Yeah, it is. I haven't bought into Grambling yet. I have to see them. I haven't bought into them yet. I know people say, well, they've gotten better. Well, so is everybody in the conference, and they weren't very good last year. So, Texas Southern for me, from watching Southern and Texas Southern for the first time with Andrew Body and Clarence McKinney, they come to Mumford Stadium. They play neutral site games. They come to Mumford Stadium for the first time. I think that changes the dynamic of the Texas Southern. Texas Southern has had success the last 2 years against Southern. I think that changes the dynamic by them coming to Baton Rouge to play in Mumford. I don't necessarily buy into Texas Southern beating Southern in Mumford Stadium. That may be, they may come in and do that. And I think, Texas Southern has developed a program from the ground up with young players. But Andrew, we've seen Andrew Body is the engine that makes Texas Southern go. And I don't know if they have the weapons outside of Andrew Body to make it be successful and really be a championship contender.
Okay. Now, I didn't say championship, but I think they're going to be a very integral piece of how the West is won. I really, really believe that. And we always have a sleeper in the conference of the season. If I were to put you on the spot right now, who would you say this year's sleeper will be?
For me, across the conference, just east, west, just across the board, I wouldn't call them a sleeper, but I think a lot of people are overlooking Alabama State.
Okay.
Eddie
Robinson Jr.
Yeah, Eddie Robinson Jr. and because they play defense, and defense always travels.
Right.
On the west side, if I had a sleeper on the west side, I guess it would probably have to be Prairie View. Because Prairie View could sneak up on some people. They play defense. They play. If you hang your hat on defense, you can always have a chance.
Yes, sir. We know defense is not sexy to the fans, but it is what keeps you in contest, and it is what leads you ultimately to the championship.
Yes.
Okay. Well, look, Brother Flood, you have graced us here at the open mic, and I can't say thank you enough. And for people who they've heard of the legend but not sure how to listen to the legend, how can they listen to you, my man?
I don't know about listening to legends, but listen to a legend, but they can listen to me. They can listen to me 5 days a week on WBOK 12:30 a.m. in New Orleans from 4 to 7 p.m. Central Time. They can tune into the WBOK Facebook page or WBOK on the ODE app. Or they can tune in to WBOK on WBOK 1230am.com on Saturdays They can listen to me on the Jaguar Journal. We're on the Jaguar Journal YouTube page, the Jaguar Journal Facebook page. We're on terrestrial radio on Talk 107.3 in Baton Rouge, on KTTP 1100 in Alexandria and 107.5 in Alexandria. We're on WBOK in New Orleans on Saturdays. And we're going to be expanding further out. We have some other things coming, but you can catch us on our YouTube page where you have video. You can catch us on Facebook. All of that's on Saturday mornings from 7 to 9 a.m. or you can catch the replay whenever it's at your convenience. So I'm on 6 days a week, man. So you can always catch me. You can follow me at rflood28 on Twitter, Reggie Flood on Facebook, and Reggie Flood on or Reg Flood on Instagram.
See, man, and all those connections, and you say not legendary. Okay, whatever you say, my man. Look, whatever you say. Hey, all that stuff. I'm glad this thing is recorded so people can go, what did he say? I can catch him where? I can catch him who? And I can catch him how? You know, so it is always good, man. And look, I appreciate the work that you put in, the grind that you have with your old relic self. You know, they say, hey, look, you say you earned that grade, right? And you earned that relic status. I know that's right. Trying. Look, I want to give you some closing thoughts and comments, man, and the floor is now yours.
I just said I think this is going to be a great year for the SWAC. We have gone through a transition period in terms of coaches and getting used to the portal and watching teams mature. I think this is going to be a banner year for the SWAC. I want everybody to tune in, watch, support the SWAC, and I think we're in for some great football with some great players and the growth of the conference. So at the end of the day, those are the things that I want to support. I'm always going to support my school or my program, but at the end of the day, we have to support each other and lift each other. So I think this is going to be a banner year for the SWAC. So let's get on board, get excited, and do the things that's necessary to propel us to the next level.
All right, as they say in the world of honky tonk, let's get her done. He is Brother Reggie Flood. I am the radio guy, Dr. Mike Prince. We thank you guys for joining in with us. Don't forget that you can follow me on Twitter X at The Mike Prince Show. Subscribe to the YouTube channel at the Open Mic Broadcast Network. And for those of you who would like to hear deeper, in-depth concepts and content, all you have to do is go to the 24-hour stream on the website at obnradio.com. My time has come where I must exit stage left. So until the next time, you guys be blessed, and we'll see you on the other side.